Today, I have a surprise for you. I'm going to be unboxing Donnerschlag, Escape from Stalingrad. This is from VUCA Simulations and was sent to me by one of the co-designers, Patrick Gephardt from Germany, I believe. I reached out to Mr. Gephardt and asked him for could I cover any of their games, because I'm kind of excited about looking at the VUCA Simulations. The graphic design, the quality really looks intriguing, and I wanted to, explore these games. And he was kind enough to send me a copy, and relatively quickly too. It was only a matter of days. So I want to thank him for that. I want to thank VUCA Simulations for that, and I'm really excited about this because this is now, it's not a topic that normally fits into my wheelhouse. I like to cover rare and obscure and rarely covered topics. This is Stalingrad. We've seen a lot of games on Stalingrad, but this looks like it's handling it in a different fashion. But more importantly, the quality, the graphics and the mounted boards and the counters and everything looks very, very intriguing, and looks like really good quality. I mean, if you just pick up this box, it meets the heft of quality. I mean, you're getting your money's worth by just lifting this up. Now, I'm a weakling, but this is pretty heavy box. So there's mounted boards. The player aids are thick stock. Everything about this screams quality. And plus, look at the graphics here. The pans are coming over the ridge there. That's awesome. Let's look at the back of the box here. And this, I don't know if this came to me like this with these little tabs on it. I don't know if they shrink wrap anything, or a lot of times when you get games from European publishers, they don't necessarily come shrink wrapped, but your mileage may vary. Lifting this up here, you get an example of the counters. You get an example of the map board. It talks about the historical period here and shows you where this takes place. This takes place in 1942. You've got a little bit of a description here on the back. One thing that I like on this description here, it says, Donnerschlag is more of a game than a simulation. Both players need to make a lot of decisions, but also need some luck. I mean, that's something that I'm always, I've talked about a lot, and always considering when I'm picking up a war game or any historical simulation, is it has game in the name. So you're looking for a game. You're looking for something that, both sides have a chance of winning and using their skill and their decisions to make the outcomes to their favor, right? That is a game. Simulations, though, tend to be, you're simulating an event. You're trying to go back in history and try to recreate and give the players a feel for what was taking place at that time and simulating that historical event. So if the game pushes too far on the continuum to simulation, it might be unbalanced. It might not be much of a game, because, I mean, if the battle was lopsided, then the simulation should be lopsided, and you're not going to have, the side that lost historically is really not going to have much of many decisions or have much of a chance to affect the outcome of that. If you really focus more on the game side, well, then it's going to be relatively balanced. It's going to be more of a game, and therefore, are you really simulating the event? Now, there are certain battles that are relatively balanced, and that fits perfectly, but a lot of battles, are not, most battles are asymmetrical. There's different forces, there's different terrain, there's different commanders, there's different decisions that were made, different supplies, what have you. So I like the fact that they've, right up front, they're saying, no, we're leaning a little bit more towards the game side. This is still a simulation, but we're going to lean a little bit more towards the game side. So I like the fact that they've come out with that. You get one rule book, one mounted map, 234 counters, 2 player aid charts, 2 setup displays, 126 cards, and 2 6-sided dice. You get your game scale there. It's battalion, regiments, and brigades. Your time scale is 1 turn equals 2 to 3 days. Map scale is 4 kilometers per hex. Playing time is 5 to 8 hours. Players is 2. It's a 3 on the complexity and 5 on solitaire. So kind of in the middle on solitaire. You know, with anytime you have cards involved, usually that can be good or bad for solitaire. But if there's hidden information with the cards, then that tends to kind of move away a little bit from solitaire play, because you know the hidden play, the hidden information that you have on your cards can affect that. So let's get into this. I'm kind of scared to pull these tabs out because I don't want to pull off any of the ink that's on there. But awesome, these are very, very sticky friendly tabs that are not pulling off any of the art. I've had that before. Have you ever been to like Barnes & Noble or Borders books or Half Price books where they have game stickers on it or price stickers, and you pull it off and it pulls off half of the ink with it. So good job there. So here we go. An interesting thing here, I mean, you've got this orange color. You know, you normally don't see orange equated with the Soviet Union, but I mean, it just looks nice. I do like their graphic design. To me, it harkens back to, you know, Panzer or Panzer Leader or Panzer Blitz. You know, that old, you know, the cover with just the stark colors and just the image of a tank on there. Nice thick box there. And this is my first VUCA simulation, if I'm pronouncing that right, hopefully. Game. I've not played any of their games. I've looked at them online. I've looked at their offerings, and I've always kind of thought, well, I'd like to try one of those. These look really good quality. They look like interesting games, a different approach to the simulations or to gameplay in the wargaming space. And I'm really glad that Patrick Gephardt sent me this copy. Here we have the rules. You have a table of contents here. It's full color, dual column, you know, your typical explanation of the counters. That looks relatively complex with all the information you have on there, but I'm sure it washes out pretty easily. Here's your different combat units. Then we get into the activation cards. And, you know, if there are activation cards, that actually can play in favor of solitaire play, because if it's a matter of activations, like, let's say like the Lock and Load World at War series, where you're playing activations, they have chits, or in the newer series, they have cards. Activation cards can actually aid a solitaire play, because you're just pulling from a deck and do the activation accordingly. So anyway, I don't know much about this game, but I'll have to read into that and see if that plays out that way. There's a lot of description of your different markers, preparation for play. Here's your sequence of play summary. It looks relatively laid out, clear and concise. I need to dive into this a little bit more. Here's stacking rules, fog of war, all your zones of control, all your typical war game concepts. If you're playing any hex and counter games, you should be very familiar with some of these concepts. Here's command and command range. That's kind of interesting there. I like that. Always like games that have a you know, kind of a simulation of command and how that works for that theater or for that time period. Here's supply. Here's movement. So again, supply is going to be very important. So this looks like it's more of although it looks like it's grand tactical possibly, it might actually be a little bit on the operational scale, especially if they have an emphasis on supply. That usually is a tip-off that this has somewhat of an operational level or scale to it. Here's your combat procedures. So several pages of combat, but that is not uncommon in these games. And here's a combat example. Gotta love that, where they have a full color example of the combat there. And then we get into talking about the Donnerschlag, victory condition, and then historical notes. So we're looking at 10 pages. That is not a lot. That's not a lot for war game. So 10 pages. Then you get historical notes, which is going to give you some background. I love that. Maps, historical background. Look at this. Several pages of historical background. This is kind of reminiscent of like a magazine war game that has an article dedicated to the game itself. Gotta love that. Then you get into the designer notes, talking about what the designers, this was co-design, what they were thinking as they developed this. And then here, there's a setup page. This is something you see a lot in Euro games, where they actually set up, show you the map and how they set up, or show you the board and how they set up different things. That's kind of nice. I like that, having a full color setup there. Then you have an index. So you have a table of contents and an index with, it looks like it has like the rule references. So gotta love that. So if you're ever, confused about something, you can go right to the rules there. So far, so good. Liking how they have this set up. Here are the different cards that you get in the game. Let's take a look at what those look like. They are not shrink wrapped, but they have this, these cross bands that you use on here. Let's see if I can get this off. It's a child. What the heck? I'm going to pop them off there. So here's the cards. They're a little thin and they curl a little bit. So we're not talking thick cardstock, but there is a little bit of a gloss on them. So that probably should protect them for play. You might want to sleeve these. A lot of people that are for card-based games tend to like to sleeve their games, especially on something that you're going to be drawing or shuffling or pulling a lot from. They might want to sleeve these. These look like they're all combat cards, so don't know how that works, but you've got at least 3 different areas. You've got an early, and I think there's like late. Yeah, there's late. So there's 2 different phases of when these cards can be used. Here's a general event and here's a tactical event. So you've got 2 different areas of the card. So you've got when it comes out, and then you have a general and a tactical event. So a lot of different information on here. So it looks like there might be multi-use of the different cards. Let's get into the rest of these here. Just pop these over here. They're child-proof, so I need to just pull this off. And these are, these are from that Signia there. These are the German, and these are the Soviet Union ones, the combat cards. Again, you're going to have the early or late designation. Then you got a little bit of a Cyrillic or Soviet script there. Gotta love that. Gives it some theme to this game. General event and tactical event. Again, I really need to get into this and see how that plays out. That's kind of cool. The early and late is kind of reminiscent of like Twilight Struggle, where they had different cards or different parts of the deck coming into play at different times, depending upon the period or the historical timeline. These are activation cards. These look like these must be the Soviet, and then these are the German activation cards. So you have 2 decks there. So you have these combat cards for the Soviets and the Germans, and you have the activation cards for the Soviets and Germans. Let's take a look at these. And these have the early and late designation as well, and then you have what you can activate. So again, this might really lend itself to solitaire play, telling you what you can activate, because when you're pulling for the opponent, the AI or whoever, the empty seat, so to speak, this might help you handle the activation there. So I like that aspect, because I tend to play a lot of games solitaire. They have these bands here. I think these correspond to the counters. I think there's different bands on the units, so that those bands might help you with the activation. So this is almost kind of like a chit draw game that has activation cards instead of chits, maybe. Maybe that's what I'm guessing here. And then you have the German cards are similar in that regard. That's very cool. Then you get a mounted map board. Boy, that is a thick one there. Look at that. We'll set that off to the side for a second. You get a couple of die or dice, a black and a red. And then let's dump out these counters here. There's a lot in this box, I gotta tell you that. So we got the counter sheets. There's 1, 2. So only 2 counter sheets. So that's interesting. But they look like they're pre-rounded. Well, there's little nibs on there. So kind of pre-rounded, but it looks like there's a little nib there. I don't think that, it looks like these might come out pretty easy though. So this is counter sheet 1 of 2, and this is 2 of 2 back there. But as you can see, some of these have that band, so I think that's corresponds to the activation cards that have it there. You have a couple of numbers there, then you have some like unit designations there. So all very nice and very colorful. I mean, it's not the drab colors that you might see from a day gone by. They're dual-sided, but there's a lot of blanks on the back, so maybe that's a step. You know, I'm guessing now, but maybe there's only 1 step to some of these units. Then you have the other counter sheet here. It looks like there's a lot of markers on this one here. But further cards here, there's like some armor here for the Soviets and the Germans. And then let's look at the back here. And there's like, again, some of these are blank and some of these have 2 dual markers on there. So that's your counter sheets. Decent thickness, as you can see there. Not huge counters, but not tiny. I mean, they look like they're regular standard, but they might be. It looks like they might pop out easy, even though there's some nibs on the side or top and bottom, but they look pretty good. Then you get the player aids, and these are some high quality player aids. I mean, look at this here. That is on mounted board stock almost there. This is your scenario here for escape from Stalingrad. Here's reinforcements. This is probably your setup, cards and markers. So you probably set that on the table there, and it's one-sided. So this is something a player aid that will be on the table itself, it looks like. And then you have one that's for the Germans. Then you have one for the Soviets as well, where you put your cards and markers, your reinforcements, and then your setup there. Look at that. I mean, that is thick cardboard stock. So really good stuff there. Then you have your player aid. There's 2 of these, and I think they are identical. So you get 2 of these player aids, again, on that very thick cardboard stock. They are not skimping on that. You have your sequence of play. Here's your combat results table, which looks relatively standard. I mean, not an overly complex combat results table. Here's your combat modifiers, your terrain effects chart in color. And then talking about some of your key concepts, zone of control, stacking, command range. I mean, there's a lot of information just on this page right here that you would normally turn to the rule book and have to look up, but you've got at least a little bit of a summary right there at your fingertips. And then you've got an extended sequence of play. So, you can leave one of these out and then one of these turned over if you really want to have the extended sequence of play at your fingertips as well. And again, very thick stock there. So as I said, I mean, I'm very impressed with the components and the quality of components that you're getting in this game here. And I assume that most, if not all, their games are that way. But again, this is my first experience. So again, want to thank Patrick Gephardt for sending me this, and I'm gonna enjoy getting this to the table. Kind of excited about this. So you got this multi-fold map here. Let's just do it where it's not wrong. And I'm already liking what I see. It's single-sided, but oh, there we go. I'm gonna do it this. It looks like it goes long way for playability, but let's put it sideways so you can see a little bit more of the map here. Puffs up a little bit, but I imagine that put the game box on it with some of the counters. They'll probably lay down over time. But you've got your decks here, a space for your combat decks. Up here for the Soviets and the Germans, you've got some turn tracks here. Here's the advance track. Here's the turn track. Here's your activation. So there's some boxes for that. And then you've got the map itself. I mean, I like it. It's relatively understated. Most of the map's in blue. The area that's outside of the map, it looks like, because there's no hexes out here, is kind of a muted tan color. But the game itself, or the main part of the playable area, is hexes, and it's blue. Then you have these A, B, and C. I think are the breakout areas. This is the breakout portion of the Stalingrad campaign in 1942, and I think those are probably the breakout areas. But a lot of roads. I don't know. I like it. It's not. And with the color of the counters, I imagine that's going to show up relatively nice on this board, having a kind of a solid background. Not really solid, but a similar color in the background, and these colors are going to pop out. The colors on the counters are going to pop out, so it's going to be easy to see that. I'm assuming that just by looking at this from that aspect. But, you know, a nice board. It's a mounted board, and this is nice. This is just a portion of this Battle of Stalingrad, mainly the breakout piece of it, the Donnerschlag. So if you've read up on that, then I think it's Operation Thunderclap is also what it's called. Anyway, so that's what you get in the box of Donnerschlag. You get some awesome, you know, very thick game components. There's your player aids, and then your setup sheets and to hold your cards. You get 2 counter sheets, which your counters are very nice looking. You get 4 decks of cards. You get a deck of card for activation and for combat for each of the Germans, and for the Soviet Union. You get some dice. You get a very somewhat, I mean, I haven't read through it all yet, but just looking through it right here with you, looks like a relatively clear and concise rule book, only 10 pages of rules, and a box and a lid. So that is what you get in a box of Donnerschlag. I want to thank Mr. Gephardt again for sending me this. I'm really excited to get to this table. I can't really contain myself. It's been a while since I've went out and bought a new game, or bought a new war game, I should say, and or got a game from a publisher. And so very excited about this. I want to get this to the table. Need to carve out some time out of my busy family and work schedule, because this looks like it deserves it. This looks like this deserves my attention. And, you know, when you're getting games, that's something you're looking for, right? You want to get something that deserves your attention. If something, you pull it out of the box, or you look at it on the shelf and you go, I don't know. I don't know if I'm really interested in that. Put it back on the shelf. You know, don't waste your time with it. Life is short. You know, I've got a lot of games. You might have a lot of games too, so you want to dedicate your time to something that interests you, something that excites you. This one is starting to excite me, I have to admit. So don't want to get TMI there on you. But anyway, that's what you get in a box of Donnerschlag. Thanks. I want to thank, again, VUCA Simulations. I want to get this to the table and try to get a little bit more videos on this, time permitting. But I thought I really wanted to share this with you since I just got this in the mail just a day ago. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hope you find this interesting. If you have any experience with this game or with VUCA Simulations, feel free to put a comment down there. Love to hear what you think about it, about this game, about the company, about any of the designs. Love to start a dialogue with it. Really appreciate that. And thank you for stopping by. I know your time is precious, so any amount of time you spend on, you know, surfing the net or stopping on someone's YouTube channel and spending a second or a minute or more, I appreciate it. I just want to let you know that I really do appreciate it. That's why I do this, just to, you know, explore my hobby, explore my passion, and to, you know, try to offer up what my thoughts are to you, and also hear what you have to think about that. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks. Thanks for watching.